In this volume, after passing Thorn Ridge, Sanzang disregarded Sun Wukong's advice and mistakenly entered the Lesser Thunderclap Monastery, where he was captured by Yellowbrow, the Demon King pretending to be the Buddha. Sun Wukong sought help from various celestial forces, but they were all defeated by the demon's magic future Houtian Sack. Eventually, Maitreya Buddha appeared and secretly taught Wukong a plan to subdue the demon. With the plan successful, Yellowbrow was subdued, and the 4 pilgrims resumed their journey to retrieve the scriptures. Sanzang and his disciples left the kingdom of Jisai, continuing westward. It was late winter turning into spring, making for a leisurely journey. Suddenly, they came across a long ridge covered in brambles and vines. Although there were traces of a path, both sides were lined with thorny bushes and brambles. Sanzang asked, "Disciples, how can we pass this path?" Wukong replied,
"Let me check."
He leapt into the air and saw a thick, misty expanse of greenery stretching far into the distance, like an endless sea of green clouds. Wukong descended and said, "Master, this place stretches as far as the eye can see, probably about 1,000 miles. Sanzang was startled. "What should we do?" Pigsy thumped his chest and said,
"No worries. I'll clear the thorns with my rake and get us through."
Pigsy recited a spell, bent over, and shouted,
"Grow!"
His body grew to 200 feet tall, and his rake extended to 300 feet. He began clearing the thorny bushes left and right with his rake, saying,
"Master, follow me."
Sanzang happily followed on horseback, with Wukong and Sandy behind. After traveling about 30 miles, they reached an open space as night began to fall. There stood a stone tablet inscribed with Thorn Ridge, followed by the words,
800 miles of thorny brambles, a path few have ever walked.
Pigsy laughed.
"Let me add a couple of lines of my own."
The group traveled another day and night without stopping, and as night fell again, they heard the wind rustling through bamboo and pines. Up ahead, they saw an open space with an ancient temple, surrounded by green pines, peach blossoms, and swaying bamboo, with birds singing nearby. Wukong looked around and said, "This place seems more dangerous than safe. We shouldn't stay long." Sandy replied, "Elder brother, you're overthinking it. There's no sign of people or monsters here. What's there to be afraid of?" As they spoke, a cold wind blew, and from behind the temple came an old man with a turban, plain clothes, and a cane, followed by a ghostly servant with a green face, tusks, and red hair, carrying a tray of steamed cakes. The servant knelt and said, "I am the earth god of Bramble Ridge. Knowing the great sage has arrived, I offer this plate of cakes to ease your hunger." Pigsy, overjoyed, reached out to grab the cakes. Wukong had been observing for a while and suddenly shouted,
"Wait! What kind of earth god are you to disturb me? Take this!"
He raised his staff and struck. The old man spun around and turned into a gust of wind. With a loud whoosh, he snatched up Sanzang and carried him off, drifting away without a trace. Wukong was left bewildered, with no way to track him. Pigsy and Sandy looked at each other in shock, while the white dragon horse neighed in fright. The old man, along with the ghostly servant, brought Sanzang to a stone house amidst the mist. They gently set him down, and the old man, holding his hand, said,
"Do not fear, holy monk. I am Lord 18th of Thorn Ridge. I have invited you here for a gathering of friends to discuss poetry and pass the time."
Sanzang carefully observed his surroundings, clouds of mist, green cliffs, and cranes flying gracefully, a scene resembling a peaceful immoral realm. Suddenly, he heard voices.
"Lord 18th has invited the holy monk."
3 elders approached, one with frost-like elegance, the second with green wings, and the third with a solemn, dark aura. They all bowed to Sanzang. Sanzang returned their bow and asked for their names. Lord 18th introduced them one by one. The one with frost-like elegance is called Lord Guji, the green-winged elder is called Master Wukong, and the one with a solemn aura is called Old Man Fuyun. As for me, I am Jin Jie. Sanzang said, I possess no great virtue to deserve such favor from you immortals. Lord 18th smiled and replied,
We have long heard of your wisdom and are fortunate to meet you. If you do not mind sharing your knowledge, we would love to have a discussion.
Sanzang then expounded on Buddhist scriptures, and the four elders listened intently, overjoyed, and all pledged their devotion. After some conversation, Old Man Fuyun invited everyone to rest at the wood immortal hut. Once seated, the ghostly servant brought out a tray of cakes and 5 cups of tea. The four elders asked Sanzang to eat first. Hesitant, he watched as they ate before taking 2 cakes himself, then drank the tea. Feeling at ease, Sanzang could not help but recite, A heart of Zen is like the moon, untouched by dust. The four elders, inspired, each added a line of their own and then asked Sanzang to conclude. Unable to decline, he continued. Half resting on pine breezes, tea still brewing, I bask in the elegance of spring. The elders praised his verses highly. As they spoke, 2 young maidens in blue appeared outside, holding red silk lanterns, followed by a fairy. She had rosy cheeks, delicate features, and bright eyes, dressed in light robes with a multicolored skirt, holding a branch of apricot blossoms, smiling as she entered. The four elders bowed and asked, Why has the apricot fairy come? The fairy greeted them.
I heard there are esteemed guests here, so I came to visit.
Lord 18th introduced the apricot fairy to Sanzang. She then ordered 2 maidens in yellow to serve tea, first to Sanzang, then to the elders, before taking some for herself. After tea, the apricot fairy, beaming with joy, said, Though I am not skilled, how about I humbly compose a response to the holy monk's verses? She then recited a 7-line poem aloud. The four elders heard her poem and congratulated her heartily. The apricot fairy smiled at Sanzang and said, Holy monk, with your talent for words, would you be so kind as to compose a verse? Sanzang did not dare agree. The woman, clearly smitten, moved closer to him and whispered softly,
Dear guest, on such a fine night, why hesitate any longer?
Lord 18th said, The apricot fairy clearly admires you, holy monk. Shouldn't you consider her feelings? Lord Guji added, If the apricot fairy is willing, let Old Man Fuyun and Lord 18th serve as matchmakers. Master Wukong and I will support this union. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Sanzang's face turned pale at their words, and he jumped up, shouting,
You are all evil beings. You promised to discuss philosophy, and now you use a beauty to deceive me.
The four elders, seeing his anger, bit their fingers in fear and said no more. The ghostly servant jumped up in rage and shouted,
You ungrateful monk! What's wrong with my sister? We've treated you kindly, but if we show our true nature, we'll carry you off, and you'll regret it for the rest of your life.
Sanzang was terrified but remained steadfast and refused. Sanzang thought to himself,
Where could my disciples be? How will they find me?
He couldn't hold back his tears. The apricot fairy, smiling, moved closer and pulled out a silk handkerchief to wipe his tears, saying,
Dear guest, don't be troubled. Let's enjoy ourselves together.
Sanzang shouted, jumped to his feet, and tried to leave, but they grabbed and pulled at him, refusing to let him go, causing a commotion until dawn. Suddenly, they heard someone calling,
Master! Master!
It was Wukong, Pigsy, and Sandy, who had been searching all night without rest. They had traveled through 250 miles of Thorn Ridge and, hearing Sanzang's shouts, called out. Sanzang burst out of the door, shouting,
Wukong, I'm here! Come save me!
The four elders, the ghostly servant, the apricot fairy, and the maidens all disappeared in a flash. In no time, the 3 disciples reached Sanzang. He held on to Wukong and said, "My disciple, I've troubled you so much." He then recounted everything that had happened. Pigsy asked, "Where did those creatures go?" The 3 of them looked and saw a stone cliff with the inscription, "This is the place." Behind it stood an ancient cypress, an old pine, and a wooden sign reading "Wood Immortal Hut." Sanzang added, "There's an old pine, a bamboo grove, a red maple, an old apricot tree, 2 wintersweet trees, and 2 sweet osmanthus trees." Wukong asked Pigsy, "Did you see any monsters?" Pigsy replied, "No." Wukong laughed.
These trees have become spirits.
Wukong continued, "Lord 18th is the pine, Lord Guji is the cypress, Master Lingkong is the maple, Old Man Fuyun is bamboo, the ghost is also a maple, and the apricot fairy is the apricot tree. The maidens are sweet osmanthus and wintersweet." Without hesitation, Pigsy swung his rake, knocking down the wintersweet, osmanthus, apricot, and maple trees, which bled from their roots. Sanzang stopped him. "Don't harm them. They haven't hurt me." Wukong said, "Master, don't pity them, they may become dangerous later." Pigsy knocked down the pine, cypress, and bamboo, then asked Sanzang to continue west. The group continued slowly. Soon, they saw a tall mountain that seemed to touch the sky and began their climb. The mountain was filled with cliffs and ravines, with animals roaming about. Wukong waved his staff, scaring off the wolves and tigers, clearing the path for Sanzang. As they crossed the ridge, they saw bright lights and mists surrounding a palace, with faint sounds of bells. Wukong noticed a hidden danger within the luxurious halls. Wukong warned, "Master, this looks like Thunderclap Monastery, but something's off. We shouldn't enter." Sanzang replied,
If it looks like Thunderclap, it might be Mountling. Don't delay my mission.
Sanzang hurried to the gate and saw the words Thunderclap Monastery. He tumbled off his horse in shock and cursed,
You wretched monkey! It's Thunderclap Monastery, and you're still lying to me.
Wukong laughed.
Master, don't be upset. There are 4 characters, not 3.
Sanzang nervously got up and looked again. Lesser Thunderclap Monastery. Sanzang said, "Even if it's Lesser Thunderclap Monastery, there must be a Buddha inside." Wukong warned,
This place is dangerous. Don't blame me if trouble comes.
Sanzang ignored him and ordered Pigsy to fetch his robe and hat, then proceeded forward. Suddenly, a voice called from within. Sanzang, you've come from the east to see Buddha, why are you so slow? Sanzang immediately knelt down, and so did Pigsy and Sandy. Only Wukong, holding the reins, watched coldly from behind. They entered the second gate and saw the main hall, surrounded by 500 arhats, 3,000 heavenly beings, 4 guardians, 8 bodhisattvas, and countless monks. Sanzang, Pigsy, and Sandy bowed with every step, terrified. Wukong didn't bow. A loud voice from the lotus throne shouted,
Sun Wukong, why don't you bow to the Buddha?
Wukong realized it was fake, grabbed his staff, and yelled,
Demon! How dare you impersonate Buddha?
He charged forward, but with a clang, a giant golden symbol fell from the sky, trapping him inside. Pigsy and Sandy panicked and fought back but were quickly surrounded and captured along with Sanzang. They were all tied up tightly. The fake Buddha was actually a demon king, and the arhats were minor demons. They threw Sanzang, Pigsy, and Sandy into the back, hiding their horses and luggage, while sealing Wukong inside the golden symbol, intending to dissolve him within 3 days. Inside the dark symbol, Wukong was drenched in sweat, struggling desperately. He used all his magic but couldn't move it at all. Wukong recited a spell, summoning the heavenly beings and guardian deities. He explained his situation. "It's so dark in here I can't breathe. Open this symbol and free me." They tried every method but couldn't find even a crack. The guardians of the 5 positions decided the 6 Ding gods would guard Sanzang, the 6 Jia gods would watch the symbol, while they flew to heaven and reported to the Jade Emperor, who immediately ordered the 28 mansions to defeat the demon and rescue Wukong. The mansions, along with the heavenly beings, arrived at the mountain gate and called from outside the symbol.
Great sage, we are the 28 mansions sent by the Jade Emperor to rescue you.
Wukong was overjoyed and said,
Break it open with your weapons, and I'll be free.
The mansions replied,
This is a solid golden treasure. Striking it would alert the demons, making rescue difficult. We'll pry it open with our weapons, and when you see light, escape.
They all tried lifting, prying, and striking, but the symbol didn't budge. It seemed as if it had been cast in one solid piece. Inside, Wukong crawled around, looking for any light, but there wasn't a glimmer to be found. The Guanyin star said, Great sage, don't be impatient. This treasure must be capable of change. Feel around inside, and I'll press the tip of my horn in. When it loosens, you can change and escape. Wukong agreed. The Guanyin star shrank himself, and his horn became as thin as a needle, pushing into the symbol's scene with great effort. After using all his strength, the tip finally pierced inside. Then, he shouted,
Grow!
And the horn expanded to the thickness of a bowl. But the symbol seemed to grow around it, gripping it tightly. Wukong felt around but couldn't find any loose spots, so he grabbed the horn and said, This isn't working. Endure the pain and help me escape. He then turned his staff into a steel drill and bored a small hole into the tip of the horn. Next, Wukong shrank himself into the size of a mustard seed and crawled into the drilled hole. He shouted,
Pull the horn out!
The Guanyin star, after exhausting all his strength, finally pulled the horn out and collapsed to the ground, drained of energy. Wukong emerged from the hole, returned to his original size, and swung his iron staff at the symbol with a loud crash, smashing the Buddha's treasure into countless golden fragments. Meanwhile, the Demon King and his minions had been asleep but awoke from their dreams in shock. The Demon King scrambled up, beat the drum, and gathered his army, all armed and rushing to the treasure platform. Wukong and the celestial deities flew into the sky. Seeing the shattered golden symbol, the Demon King wielded the wolf-tooth cudgel, yelled,
You filthy monkey! Come down and fight me for 300 rounds!
Wukong raised his staff and shouted,
What kind of monster are you, daring to impersonate the Buddha, occupying the mountain, and setting up a fake Lesser Thunderclap Monastery?
The demon replied,
This place is called Lesser Western Paradise, and I am the old Buddha Yellowbrow. I've known you were headed west, so I set this up to lure your master and challenge you to a bet.
The demon continued,
If you defeat me, I'll let you and your master go, and you'll reach enlightenment. If not, I'll kill you and take the scriptures from the Buddha myself.
Wukong laughed.
Demon, no need for such big talk. If it's a fight you want, come get my staff.
He swung his staff, and the demon blocked it with the wolf-tooth cudgel. They fought for 50 rounds without a victor. The demons at the mountain gate beat gongs, waved flags, and shouted. Meanwhile, the 28 mansions and the guardians of the 5 positions surrounded the demon, weapons in hand, ready to attack. The old demon wasn't afraid. He used his wolf-tooth cudgel to fend off the soldiers, then pulled a white cloth bag from his waist and tossed it into the air with a loud whoosh. It instantly captured Wukong, the 28 mansions, and the guardians of the 5 positions, sealing them inside. The old demon slung the bag over his shoulder and returned victoriously, surrounded by his minions. He ordered them to untie the bag and bind each prisoner with ropes. They were tossed aside, and after a banquet of celebration, the demon and his followers went to bed. At midnight, Wukong and the gods lay bound when Wukong suddenly heard crying. Listening closely, he realized it was Sanzang. Feeling pity, Wukong used his escape magic to shrink himself and slip out of his ropes, then quietly approached Sanzang. Sanzang recognized his voice. Wukong explained everything that had happened. Sanzang wept.
Disciple, save me. From now on, I'll leave everything to you.
Wukong freed his master, then released Pigsy, Sandy, and the others. Wukong urged everyone to leave quickly. Once outside, he realized the luggage was missing and went back to search. The Guanyin star said,
You value possessions over people. You've saved your master, why look for luggage?
Wukong replied,
People are important, but so are the Buddhist treasures. How can I leave them behind?
Pigsy said, Brother, you go search. We'll wait for you on the road. The celestial deities protected Sanzang, used magic to summon the wind, and flew down the mountain. Wukong moved stealthily inside, transforming into a bat and flying through doors and windows. Beneath the window of the third floor, he saw a glowing light. It was the radiant shine of the cassock inside the luggage. Wukong was delighted, returned to his true form, grabbed the luggage, and slung it over his shoulder. As he moved, he accidentally stepped on a floorboard, making a loud noise. The Demon King woke up shouting.
Someone's here!
The demons lit lamps and searched. Fearing another trap, Wukong dropped the luggage and somersaulted out the window. At dawn, unable to find Sanzang, the Demon King ordered his troops to arm themselves and rushed out, seeing the 28 mansions and the guardians of the 5 positions gathered at the foot of the mountain. He roared,
Where are you going? I'm coming!
The Hornwood Star shouted.
Brothers! The monster's here!
The celestial mansions, along with the golden-headed and silver-headed guardians, 6 Ding and 6 Jia, charged with Pigsy and Sandy. The Demon King whistled, summoning 4,000 to 5,000 demons, and both sides clashed on the hillside in a chaotic battle. As the battle raged, Wukong arrived. Pigsy asked, What about the luggage? Wukong replied,
I barely escaped. Forget the luggage.
Sandy said,
Enough talk, let's fight.
The celestial deities were surrounded by demons. Wukong, Pigsy, and Sandy fought the Demon King, but the battle was fierce, and they couldn't win. The demon took out the bag again. Wukong shouted,
This is bad!
And somersaulted into the sky. The Demon King captured Pigsy, Sandy, the deities, and Sanzang, and returned to his temple, binding them again. Seeing everyone captured, Wukong landed on the eastern peak, lamenting. After a while, he remembered true martial god of the north, also known as the heavenly honored demon suppressor, and decided to seek help from him on Mount Wudang. Wukong somersaulted to Mount Wudang. Within a day, he saw the immortal realm and gently descended. Wukong arrived outside the Hall of Palace of Great Peace, where 500 spirit officials greeted him. After explaining his purpose, they invited the patriarch to descend. Wukong bowed deeply and recounted how his master and disciples were trapped in Lesser Thunderclap Monastery, how the heavenly soldiers tried to help, and how they were all captured by the demon's magic. He concluded,
I've run out of options and seek your aid.
The patriarch replied,
Since the great sage has come, I must act, but without orders from heaven, I cannot start a war. I will, however, send the General Tortoise, General Snake, and 5 magic dragons to assist you in capturing the demon and rescuing your master.
Wukong thanked the patriarch, and together with the tortoise, snake, and dragon gods, they returned to the western region. Soon, they arrived at Lesser Thunderclap Monastery and challenged the demon at the gate. Yellowbrow heard the news and came out, shouting,
Which gods dare trespass in my domain?
The dragons and generals declared their names and shouted back,
Hand over Tang Sanzang and the others, or we'll burn this mountain to ash.
The demon, enraged, yelled,
How dare you boast, beasts! Take this!
The 5 dragons summoned clouds and rain, while the 2 generals stirred dust and sand, each wielding their weapons. Wukong joined the battle with his iron staff, and a fierce fight ensued. After half an hour of fighting, the demon pulled out his magic bag. Wukong, alarmed, shouted,
Be careful!
The dragon gods, Snake and Tortoise, stopped their attacks and braced themselves. With a loud whoosh, the demon threw the bag, capturing the dragon gods, Snake and Tortoise. Wukong escaped into the sky with a somersault. Wukong landed on a mountain, exhausted and frustrated. Suddenly, he heard a voice. Great sage, hurry and get help. Your master's life is in danger. Wukong jumped up and saw it was the duty god of the day. Wukong shouted,
Where have you been, feasting on offerings? You didn't check in, yet now you come to scare me.
The duty god hurriedly bowed.
We've been following Guanyin's orders to protect Tang Sanzang. Why blame us, great sage?
Wukong asked, Where are the stellar deities, the heavenly guardians, the protectors, and my master held? The duty god replied,
Your master and brothers are tied under the hall, and the stellar deities are imprisoned in the cellar.
Wukong shed tears. The guardian consoled him. Don't worry, great sage. At Mount Shui in southern Jambu continent, the great sage Bodhisattva king teacher has great powers. Seek his help, and you'll defeat the demon and save your master. Wukong joyfully flew to Mount Shui. Soon, he crossed the Huai River and reached the great sage's Dhyana Monastery, surrounded by grand halls and a pagoda. Wukong reached the gate, and Bodhisattva king teacher, already expecting him, came out with little Prince Zhang to greet him. After the formalities, Wukong explained, I've come to ask the Bodhisattva for help in saving my master. King teacher replied, I should go myself, but I just subdued the water ape sage, and I fear you will cause trouble if I leave. I'll send my disciple and 4 generals to help you. Wukong thanked him and, along with little Prince Zhang and the 4 generals, flew back to Lesser Thunderclap Monastery. Little Prince Zhang wielded his white spear, and they all joined Wukong in challenging the demon. The demon came out, shouting,
Monkey! Who have you brought now?
Little Prince Zhang responded, We are disciples of Bodhisattva king teacher, leading 4 generals to capture you. The demon sneered.
What skills do you have, child?
Furious, little Prince Zhang attacked with his spear, and the generals joined in. Wukong assisted with his iron staff, but after a long battle, neither side gained an advantage. The demon pulled out his magic bag. Wukong warned,
Be careful!
But before anyone realized, the demon captured little Prince Zhang and the generals in his bag. Wukong quickly escaped into the sky. Seeing the demon retreat, Wukong stood on the western slope, lamenting. Suddenly, a colorful cloud descended from the southwest, bringing rain, and a voice called, Wukong, do you recognize me? Wukong rushed forward and saw a man with a broad face, big ears, and a joyful appearance. It was Maitreya Buddha. Wukong quickly bowed. Maitreya said, I'm here to subdue the demon at Lesser Thunderclap Monastery. Wukong asked, Thank you, Great One. May I ask what kind of demon this is? And what treasure is that magic bag of his? Maitreya said, He's Yellowbrow, a servant of mine. I left him to guard while attending a meeting, and he stole some treasures, pretending to be a Buddha. The bag is my future heaven sack, also called the human seed bag, and is the wolf tooth cudgel, is a stick for striking the chime. Wukong shouted,
What a careless monk! You let this boy run wild, pretending to be Buddha and causing me trouble.
Maitreya replied, I was careless, but your trials are not yet over. You still had this challenge to face. Wukong asked. This demon is strong. How do I defeat him? Maitreya whispered a plan to Wukong and said, Do this, and he will follow. Wukong said, It's a good plan, but why would he follow me? Maitreya smiled. Give me your hand, and I'll teach you a spell. Wukong extended his left hand. Maitreya dipped his finger in divine water and wrote the word stop on Wukong's hand. When you release your fist in front of the demon, he'll follow you. Wukong eagerly accepted the lesson, grabbed his iron staff with one hand, and called out from the gate.
Demon! Your grandpa's son is back! Come out and face me!
A little demon ran to inform the Demon King. The Demon King asked, How many troops does he have? The little demon replied, Just him alone. The Demon King laughed.
The monkey is out of options and coming to his death.
The Demon King, fully armed, walked out with his wolf-tooth cudgel, shouting,
Wukong, you're done for this time.
Wukong cursed.
Ignorant demon! Take this!
And swung his staff. Seeing Wukong using one hand, the Demon King laughed.
Why are you fighting with one hand?
Wukong replied,
You can't handle both my hands. Without your bag, you wouldn't even last against this one.
The Demon King, accepting the challenge, said,
Fine. I won't use my magic bag. Let's settle this.
He charged the wolf-tooth cudgel. Wukong opened his fist, grasped the staff with both hands, and the demon, bound by the spell, forgot to use his bag and continued fighting. They chased Wukong to the western slope. Wukong saw a melon field, rolled in, and transformed into a ripe melon. The demon stopped and looked around, confused. He went to a hut and asked, Who planted these melons? Maitreya, disguised as an old farmer, answered, Great King, I planted them. The demon said,
Pick a ripe one to quench my thirst.
Maitreya, seeing through the trick, handed him Wukong in the form of a melon. Without looking, the demon took a bite. Wukong took the chance to roll down the demon's throat and into his stomach, where he wreaked havoc. The demon screamed in agony, rolling around like a threshing floor, crying out,
Someone save me!
Maitreya revealed himself and laughed.
You wretch! Do you recognize me?
The demon looked up, terrified, and fell to his knees, clutching his belly, begging,
Master, spare me. I won't do it again.
Maitreya took the demon's bag and stick, saying, Wukong, spare him for my sake. Wukong, still furious, punched and kicked inside, causing the demon unbearable pain. Maitreya persuaded him again, and Wukong said,
Open your mouth, and I'll come out.
The demon, in pain, opened wide, and Wukong jumped out, ready to strike. But Maitreya quickly trapped the demon in his bag. Maitreya asked, Where did you hide the golden symbol? The demon whimpered from inside the bag.
Wukong broke it.
Maitreya said, If it's broken, give me the gold. The demon replied,
The fragments are piled on the lotus altar.
Seeing this power, Wukong obeyed and led Maitreya back to the temple to collect the gold. The little demons, knowing their leader was captured, scattered. Wukong killed hundreds of them, revealing their true forms: mountain spirits, tree demons, and beastly fiends. Maitreya collected the gold fragments, blew divine breath on them, and recited a spell, restoring the golden symbol. Then, he bid farewell to Wukong and ascended to the Pure Land. Wukong freed Tang Sanzang, Bajie, and Sha Wujing, recounting the help from the great sage Bodhisattva, little Prince Zhang, and Maitreya. Sanzang thanked them all deeply. Following the advice of the duty god, they freed the trapped celestial beings from the cellar. Sanzang, wearing cassock, knelt to thank them. Wukong escorted the deities back to their realms. After resting for half a day and feeding the white horse, they packed their belongings. Before leaving, they set fire to the buildings and cheerfully resumed their journey.